They say the marsh remembers, tracks in mud, breath in the reeds, a name carried across black water, and if you hear whispering when the moon hangs low, don't turn your head. Keep walking, keep breathing, keep your skin. You're watching CGE TV, where stories never die. Elijah Simmons had hands like driftwood and a back that bowed with the tide. He fished the inlets near Beaufort, South Carolina, where the nights are thick as sorghum and the air tastes like salt on an old prayer. Folks warned him not to stay past sundown. Marsh don't belong to people after dark, the elders said. Elijah laughed. Dark is just light without manners. That evening, the moon slid up like a coin, slick and silver. Elijah hauled in the day's catch, set his nets neat as church pews, and pushed off, late. At the slough where the water narrows, he spotted Mama Roo standing on the bank, a woman older than thunder, wrapped in a shawl as dark as a well. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just stared at Elijah like the marsh itself had borrowed her eyes. "Boy," she said, voice ragged like a corn broom, "you pass this bend after midnight and something gonna ride you till the rooster forgets his name." Elijah said he was too old for ghost tales. Mama Roo just lifted a string of copper charms, each bead dull with sweat and years. "Pour salt, cross your threshold, stand a broom by your door, and don't you sleep with your mouth open." "Why?" Elijah asked, half grinning. "Because the Boo Hag don't need doors when the cracks will do." Halfway home, the marsh forgot how to breathe. No frogs, no wind, just a sound like a wet fingertip on the boat's belly. Elijah leaned over the edge, lantern swinging a thin halo. Water looked back at him. His face shimmered. Then the reflection didn't blink when he did. The lantern hissed. The oar rope groaned, and somewhere behind his shoulder he heard a whisper that wasn't a word but felt like one.
"Let me in."
Elijah sat up straight. "Tide's playing tricks," he muttered, but the marsh had already taken interest. Elijah reached his shack, a square of wood held together by wishes and nails. He lit the stove, laid out the fish, and set his boots by the door. He remembered Mama Roo's broom, laughed it off at first, then stood it upright by the door frame, bristles down like she said. Salt, he had a little, sprinkled it in a thin line along the sill. He told himself he was just respecting tradition, but when he blew out the lamp and lay down, the dark felt close enough to wear. Sleep crept in sideways. Elijah drifted, heavy as wet rope, and the room cooled like a tide pulling back. Something slid through the house quiet as spilled oil. Not a footstep, not a body scraping, a presence, thin as a shadow, red as a wound. Elijah couldn't move, couldn't swallow. He realized his mouth was open, just a thumb's width, like a door left on a hinge. Weight pressed on his chest, light at first, then heavier, like a stranger sitting down to rest. The lantern cold, the fire ash, the broom trembling, breath gathered at his lips, tugged like a tide. He heard it then, close enough for skin to understand.
"Let me ride."
He remembered Mama Roo's words. He forced his tongue to the roof of his mouth, jaw tight. The pull weakened, but the weight grew. Angry now, pressing, until his ribs hummed like a saw. Elijah could feel it hunting for a seam, the crack of a window, the fold of a breath, a place to slip and wear. His mother's voice rose up from some remembered Sunday. "When the old stories knock, you answer with a name stronger than your own." Elijah rasped a word through clenched teeth. Not a prayer he learned in church, but one older than pews in English. A name Mama Roo once said belonged to river and flame. The weight shifted. The room smelled like wet iron. Something peeled back from his chest and leaned close, curious. Elijah opened his eyes a sliver. He didn't see a face. He saw inside. A red, muscle-slick shape quivering in the lantern's ghost light, stitching itself into the dark like a needle. "You ain't taking my breath," he whispered, words scraping. "And you sure ain't taking my skin." The thing smiled without a mouth, more felt than seen. It pressed two fingers where his lips parted and waited. The broom fell with a clatter, bristles splayed like a warning hand. Salt scattered, a tiny bright river. The weight lifted in a burst of wind. The door banged once, twice. Then the house remembered how to breathe. Elijah rolled to his side, choking air like new water. His chest burned. His lips felt cold where those fingers had paused. He crawled to the door, set the broom upright, and poured the last of his salt in a clear, unbroken line, thick as a promise. Dawn came slow, gray first, then pearl, then the color of old bones. Elijah found a print on his chest. Not a bruise, not a hand, but 4 long streaks like someone smoothed paint with the edges of a blade. He buttoned his shirt to the throat, took up his hat, and walked. Mama Roo was exactly where the day had left her, by the bend, shawl wrapped tight, eyes older than the marsh. She didn't ask if the night went well. She held out a small jar, the color of honey and rust. Camphor and ironweed, she said. Rub it where the cold took hold, and listen close. Tonight won't be the last time it asks to ride. The hag don't like to be denied. Elijah looked past her to where the water narrowed. In the glare of morning, the surface was smooth as glass, and just for a breath, he saw a face that wasn't his, floating under the light, smiling with no mouth at all. Gather back round the fire next time. The Boo Hag don't knock, she counts. This is CGE TV.